Section 4.2 is just an extension of Section 4.1, only this time we're going to look at it in an illustrated fashion. So again, I want you to consider, how do you spend your time overall? Think about all the things you have to do in a day. Each one of us should be spending time with God. Because you're in school, you should be doing your schoolwork. Eating is very important. You should be eating and making time to eat healthy foods. You should be sleeping. Many of you have extracurricular activities that you're involved in. You have sports, dance, music, drama, maybe some clubs you're a part of. That's something that takes up your time. Some of you have jobs, and so you have to go to work. And then I also think it's really important to schedule yourself some downtime. That could also include some of your margin, which would be what I talked about in Section 4.1. Now, this is actually an example of an illustrated time budget. So this is a pie chart that shows how a person might spend a 24-hour time period. This is one day and how they would spend their time. So what we see here is we see that we've got sleep in this blue color, this light blue, and that's for 8 hours. We see that we have food, which is in this purple color, that's 2 hours. You have to go to school. You spend 7 hours there maybe doing school and schoolwork. 2 hours for work, 2 hours for driving time, and then we have 3 hours of free time or margin in our day. So this is basically taking that budget that I showed you how to make in lesson 4.1 and then turning it into a picture, showing it in a pie chart. Now, you have to decide what you're actually going to show in your budget. So what I had shown in that previous picture was something for a whole day. You may decide you don't want to show a whole day though, because you really aren't in control of the majority of that day. Maybe what you want to show is what you're in control of. So for example, you could budget what time you have in the evening and do a pie chart on how you spend that time. So for example, in this picture, you've got someone playing video games. They would want to budget time to play video games if they find spending time on video games important to them. You might also find that you want to budget time on the weekends, because that might be something where you have more flexibility and you can actually schedule that time and budget it. Now again, I cannot overemphasize this. It is so important to be mindful of how you spend your time. We honor God when we spend our time wisely. Proverbs 90:12 says, "So teach us to number our days, that we may apply our hearts unto wisdom." Time is the only thing we spend that we can never get more of. And so God wants us to be wise and to spend our time in the way that honors Him. And He's not saying we can't do things we like, but we want to really be wise to use that time wisely. All right, so how do we make this pie chart? Well, there's kind of two ways you can do it. One is you can do it by hand. And the other way is you can do it in Excel. So the picture that I showed you was something I did in Excel. I put it in this slideshow. I'm actually going to show you how to do both at the end of this video. I'm first going to show you how to do it by hand, and then I'm going to show you how to make a pie chart in Excel. So if you're going to do this by hand, you want to take your activities that you're doing and determine how much time you're spending on each activity. You're going to convert it into a percentage, and you're going to then convert that into the number of degrees that it would take up in a circle. Once you know how many degrees each section is, you can then use a protractor and a compass to create a pie chart based on those degrees. If you do it in Excel, it's a little bit easier. You can actually just take the data that you have and put that information into a chart, and you let Excel actually create the pie chart for you. So we're going to have one practice problem. I'm going to use the data that we already saw, and I'll show you how to do it both by hand and in Excel. All right, so here's the data that I had from the problem, and I'm going to show you how to do this by hand. So we're going to need a few tools to get started. I'm going to need a calculator. I'm just using my phone. That's a good enough calculator. I'm going to need a protractor, and I am going to need a compass. So the first thing I had mentioned I wanted to do was to take the amount of time I spent out of the whole and make it a percent. Now, you can actually make this a decimal if you want, or you can make a percent. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to actually end up showing mine in decimal format because for me that's just a little bit easier. So to figure out what portion that is of 24, I'm going to take 8 divided by 24. And when I do, that's going to give me 0.333 repeating. So I'm going to go on ahead and write down 0.3 repeating. So to write that down as a repeating number, you can just put a line over it, and that means it's going to continue to repeat. I'm going to do the same thing for each one of these numbers. So I'm going to take 7 hours divided by 24, gives me 0.2916 repeating. 2 divided by 24 gives me 0.083 repeating. 2 divided by 24, these are all the same, 0.083 repeating, 0.083 repeating, and then I have 3 divided by 24, and that gives me 0.125. Now, the one thing I want to see is when I add all of these up, if you put this as a percentage, this would change to like 33%, this would be 29.16%, this would be 8.3%. If I add all these up in decimal format, I want this total down here, because this is kind of my total. I want this to equal, if it's in decimal, a 1, or if it's in a percentage, I want it to equal 100. The other reason why I listed these as repeating numbers is because that's going to help me when I convert it over here to degrees. So I'm going to go on ahead and start by just adding up each one of these numbers. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm putting a lot of extra decimals on here just to give me my best closest numbers. So I've got 0.3333. I'm going to add 0.2916, and I'm going to go on ahead and have that repeat. 0.08333, 0.08333 plus 0.08333 plus 0.125. And when I do, that gives me 0.9999983. And that means if I were to round this up, this would round up to 1.00. So because I did decimals, it all needs to add to 1. If I had done percentages, this would all add up to 100. Now, I'm going to use these portions to calculate out how many degrees in a circle it is. So in a circle, you have 360 degrees. So I need to figure out what portion of this circle needs to be sleep, which is equal to 0.333. So to do that, I'm going to take 360, because that's how many degrees I have in a circle, and I can multiply it by this number here. Now this is why I left all these decimals. I'm not going to round it to just 2 decimal places. I'm going to put in several decimal places. I could keep going. This is kind of the max my calculator will let me do. If I keep hitting 3, it won't go anymore. So that's what I'm going to end up doing with this number. And I'm going to say this equals, and it says 119.9999999. Lots of 9s. That rounds up to 120 degrees. So that means that when I do my circle, this is going to be worth 120 degrees in my circle. That's how much the sleep is worth, 120 degrees. Same thing with school. I'm going to take my 0.2916666. I'm going to hit the 6 as many times as I can. It stops there, times 360 degrees. And that gives me 104.9999998. So I'm going to go on ahead and round that up to 105. My 2 hours that I have, I'm going to take this 0.08, I'm going to hit 3 until it stops, times 360 degrees, and each one of those is going to be, as you can see rounded, it's 29.99999. If I round that up, that's 30 degrees. So each one of these is worth 30 degrees. And then my final one is my free time, and that's worth 1.25. So if I type in 1.25 times 360 degrees, that's going to give me 45 degrees. And again, when I add all of this up, this should add up to 360 degrees. So I'm going to go on ahead and add those up. I have 120 plus 105 plus 30 plus 30 plus 30 plus 45. And look at that, it gives me 360 degrees. So now I know how many degrees in my circle are going to be put to these different groupings here. So now it's time for me to draw my circle. Now one thing I like to do is make sure that I have enough room for my circle. So a lot of times I look at this, I put my protractor on my paper, I might flip it over and see how far away from the edges I am. I have plenty of room. this protractor, I can go on ahead and mark a dot to say this is going to be my starting point. And then I need to decide how big to make this circle. So right now I've got a protractor and it looks like this. I use the compass here actually to determine how big my paper was. If I start my circle here, it's not going to be, as you can see, this is just not going to be very big. And I want to have a bigger one. So I'm going to go on ahead, I'm going to increase this until I get a little farther out. And I kind of like the thought of having my circle. This is about half of my circle's distance. I've taken this tip that's on here, this metal tip, I'm putting it right in this dot because I know that this is a great starting point, and this is going to be how I line my compass up when I do it. So I'm going to go on ahead and make my circle, and when I do, I'm just going to use my protractor and I'm going to go in a circle here and hope that it doesn't move. If it moves, then your circle might get a little off kilter, but here you can see that mine held pretty steady while I was drawing it. The next thing I need to do is determine my starting point. So really, when I make this circle, I can go on ahead. This is my starting dot right here. I'm putting my pencil on it right now. And I'm going to go on ahead and go almost all the way out to one of the lines because that's going to be my starting point. So this is going to be 0 when I do this. Now that I've got my starting point, I've got my 0, I can now measure out 120 degrees. So it depends on which side I put this on as to how I want to do it. I'm actually going to flip mine over, which it was upside down before, and I'm going to keep it that way because I'm going to rotate when I go. I'm going to go this way to get to my 120 degrees. And when I do, since this is right at 0, as you can see 0 is out here, I'm going to use these numbers on the outside. I'm going to go up and I'm going to go to 120 degrees. And you might have to kind of sit over it to see where your 120 degrees is, but do your best. So I've made a marking off to the side at what 120 degrees would look like. I'm going to go on ahead and I'm going to draw my line from my circle all the way to my middle. And when I do, that is 120 degrees. So I'm going to go on ahead and label this. I'm going to say this is sleep, and I'm going to say this is 8 hours. So that way I know exactly what this is for. The next thing I can put on here is my schoolwork, and that's 105 degrees. So this now becomes my 0. I've still got this in my dot. This is my 0. I'm going to go ahead and straighten that line out a little bit. This is now my 0, and I can look on here and I can find my 105 degrees. So I have 100 here. If I start over here, I'm starting at 0. I'm moving all the way up until I get to 105. So that's between 100 and 110. That's going to be this mark right here. And again, I'm going to take my compass. I'm going to line it up. I'm going to start at this dot in the middle. I'm going to go all the way out to my line that's outside my circle. And when I do, I'm just going to stop at the circle. I can erase this marking here. And this is now my schoolwork. So I've got school and I have 7 hours. I'm going to do the same thing now for my work, my eating, and my driving. And when I do, again, this is going to be I'm putting my line back with the dot in the middle, and I am going to look for 30 degrees starting here. This is at the 0. I'm going to look at this and I'm going to go up to 30 degrees. I'm going to go on ahead and mark that. If I feel especially lazy, I can just keep going. I can say, okay, well, another set of 30 would be at 60, and another set of 30 would be at 90. And interestingly enough, if you look at this, I'm at 90 right here. If I add 45 more degrees, that puts me here. So I've already made it my full circle here. So I've got each one of these as a grouping of 30 degrees. And I can go on ahead and draw my line. So I'm going to go on ahead and get this set up. I'm going to draw straight out. I'm going to draw this one as well. And then I can draw this final one as well. And once I do, that completes the sections that I need to create for my circle. So I can erase each one of these lines that are out here. All right, this is going to be my work. and that's 2 hours. This is going to be eating. This is 2 hours. I have driving for 2 hours, and then I have free time for 3 hours. All right. The last thing I really want to do with this is I really like to color it in, because that's what makes it look nice. So a lot of times I would look for different colors that I would use. So for free time, I'm going to go on ahead and make that red. I would use different colors because that's going to help me to see exactly how my circle is going to look. So I'm going to go on ahead and spend some time coloring this in. And now I've got my illustrated pie chart showing exactly how I spent my time, and it's even colored in so that you can really notice those differences. So now we are going to use Excel to record our data, and it's actually a lot easier to type this into Excel. So if you're not familiar with Excel, I've just pulled up Excel. This is a blank file, and I can go on ahead and type into any of these boxes I want to. Basically, I've clicked on these different boxes. I've clicked now on this cell, which is in column C, row 4, or 3. I would call this C3, and I can just start typing directly. You can see this green box around this cell. That means that I'm on this specific cell. So here I'm going to type the word sleep. This is one of the categories we had. I'm going to hit the tab key, and that's going to take me over to the next cell. I can also use arrow keys and go back and forth, but I used tab in this case just to go over one. So I hit 8. When I hit enter, because I hit the tab key, it's going to take me down below the word sleep. If I had not done that, I could have just used the arrows to get there. So now I'm going to type in the word school. I'm going to tab over. I'm going to say that I had 7 hours for school. I'm going to hit enter. It's going to take me down. I had work. Tab over. Type in the number 2. I have eating. I can type in the number 2. I had driving. I can type in the number 2. And then we had free time. And I can type in the number 3 because we had 3 hours there. I do want to update this column because it's kind of small. So if I take my mouse and put it between the C and the D right where the line is, you can see that I have a line with 2 arrows next to it. If I hold my left button down on my mouse, I can drag this over and I can make it a little bit wider. Likewise, if I want to make my number column a little bit smaller, column D, I can again put my cursor between the D and the E. I can left click down and drag it over and make it smaller. So I've gone ahead and formatted my information here. Now I'm ready to actually put in the pie chart. So I'm going to go up top where it says insert. When I click on insert, I can see over here I have a variety of charts I can put in. This is a pie chart, and this is the one I want to use. So that's already shown. If I had a chart I didn't see, I could click this little button here, and it would show me a large variety of pie charts. But in this case, I just want to do a pie chart. So I'm going to click on the pie chart, and it gives me some options. In this case, I want to see a 2D pie chart. So I'm going to go on ahead and click that, and now it's given me my chart. I have a little spot where I can put my title. If I go to the end of this with my arrows, I'm going to change the chart title. I can say daily time, and that's what I want my title to be. Up top, you can see here that I've got some chart styles I can use. If I click this down arrow, it shows me quite a bit. I can click any of these styles I want. If I click this style, it changes it for me. I've got my daily time, and it puts my key up above the numbers. I really like having the dark background. That's what I used in the PowerPoint. I can use there's a variety of them, and you can click on them and see which ones you like the best. So I'm going to go on ahead and click on this one because I really like the way that this one looks. If I want to change any information though inside the pie chart, I can do that. I'm going to right click on this piece of the pie right here, and it can say format data labels. And so a data label is basically these percentages in here. So let's say I don't want to show the percentages. I can click this box that says percentage, and it takes all of my percentages off. Let's say all I want to see is the value. I can click the box that says value. Let's say I want to see them both. I can click a box that says percentage. Let's say I want to see a legend or a key. I can click a box that says legend or key, and this is my legend or key up here. So there's quite a few things that I can put in here. I don't really like seeing the values and the percentages. I'm just going to leave it at values because I like seeing the number of hours in there. I also have some other options in here. I can change where it's at in the cells. So out here it says inside end. I can set it to best fit, and it will change my circle. I can set it to center, and it's putting it in the middle of the center. I can format my numbers a little differently. I can change the category of my number. Let's say I wanted to make it dollar signs. I could change them to dollars. These are not dollars because these are hours. And so I'm not going to do that. I could say time, and this would tell me the time of day. I didn't give it in time. I just gave it in a number format. So for me, really the general is the best way to go because this is the general time that I had in hours. So that's how I would want to see that. And kind of the last thing I can do with Excel is I can make this bigger. So if I want to see it in a bigger format, I just clicked on that circle at the end and dragged it. If I want to move this around, I can do that. If I click down anywhere in this white box, I can drag it around on the page. And now for your homework, I would encourage you to decide if you want to use Excel or if you want to do them by hand. But no matter which way you choose to do them, make sure that you are mindful of how to create those pie charts with either method.